This is not selling out. This is getting people to buy in.
That's today's guest, educator, conductor, and leader Chuck Dickerson, on the value of making sure students know they matter. Welcome to Music Ed Insights. I'm leadership trainer and former band director Alan Fire, here with composer and co-college music education program head Steve Shanley.
Each episode, Alan and I talk with national thought leaders in music education with practical insights for K-12 music educators.
Steve, tell us about our guest.
Chuck Dickerson is a distinguished conductor, educator, and composer who serves in multiple roles across Los Angeles and beyond. He is the music director and conductor of the Inner City Youth Orchestra of Los Angeles, a professor at both California State University Dominguez Hills and La Sierra University, as well as director of music at Rolling Hills United Methodist Church. Find Chuck's full bio, show notes, and resources at musicedinsights.com. Alan, what was the takeaway you had from this episode?
Well, I totally bought into the idea of classroom teachers using more jingles when teaching lessons. It sounds like a quick and effective way for our music teachers to promote some cross-disciplinary action and increase music literacy. What about you, Steve?
I like his reminder to engage school board members on why music is important. That's an easy and powerful thing to do, but most of us forget about it.
Yes. And the origin story of those 9 kids who got the Inner City Youth Orchestra started was inspiring and a nice reminder of how much students really want music. Insiders get ad-free episodes. If you want the benefits of being a Music Ed Insights insider, head to our website to learn more. For now, let's hear from Chuck Dickerson.
Chuck Dickerson, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we've asked you to join us today and speak about the importance of diversity in classical music. Before we get to the implications for our teachers and our students, let's talk about classical music in general. What do you think we're getting wrong from a diversity standpoint, and why is that a problem?
Well, first, what are we getting wrong, period? Obviously, classical music, I think at this point in our history, takes a strong backseat, a definite backseat to other genres of music, particularly the pop stuff. And, Miss Beyonce is not, she's spread out into country and western. I'm waiting for her to do some classical
It'd
music.
be nice if she wrote a string quartet, right?
I believe if she did that, a whole lot of people would listen to it.
Totally, yeah.
I would.
But the thing that we are particularly doing is we're continuing to think that we just play the regular canon of classical music. I'm talking about in general classical music now, how we're doing things that could be changed. We're playing the basic canon and thinking that people still want to necessarily just think of classical music as only Mozart, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, all great composers. But, there are today more current composers who are doing things that are implementing other genres of music into classical music that might seem to be maybe an opportunity for us to consider how we can fill the seats in the concert hall a little bit better than we have been lately. With respect to the diversity issue, I have the privilege of sitting on the board of directors of the League of American Orchestras. And you may be aware of their studies over the last few years. There have been attempts to try to increase the numbers of minorities who are participating in American orchestras. They started a study maybe 40 or 50 years ago, and they found that I think at that time, the percentage of African Americans who were involved in classical music, at least in orchestras, like 1.8%. We're 50 years removed from when they began that study, and that envelope has only moved to 2.4% in
Yeah.
terms of the African American population. Latinos have done a little bit better, but they're still very much in the back of the line. There's a perception with regard to all efforts to try to make America's institutions look more like America does and is going to increasingly look in the future. Right now there's a big attack on the efforts to try to diversify. Well, we call this, I guess, making America great again. Well, maybe it was great for other people during earlier times when there were specific goals and specific numbers and specific percentages that were kind of just left set aside that were very, very low in number. We're continuing, however, to see low numbers, low percentages of primarily African Americans and Latinos making it into the classical music realm. How do we correct this? I think a lot of it has to do with who your audience is for this very podcast. It has to do with starting young people earlier so that they are better prepared to win the audition when the opportunity comes that way. And lastly, I'll say on this, if we do not make the adjustments that need to be made and make the corrections that we need to be made, some folks are already calling classical musicians dinosaurs. We'll be worse off than that if we don't continue to try to make America look America's institutions, meaning American orchestras, American bands, American whatever. If we don't continue our efforts to try to make these institutions look more like the American public is looking.
I went to a talk a few years ago that cited some of the same statistics from the League of American Orchestras and the problem with underrepresented populations in all of our orchestras nationwide. And the thing that I remember from that was one of the panelists said, yes, it's the right thing to do just from the standpoint of getting more diversity into our orchestras, but also it's smart business.
It
That
is smart business.
if
Yes.
we want to have audiences and we want to expand our audiences, they want to come to the concerts and see people who look like themselves on the stage. And if they don't, they're going to feel like this is not for me. So even if you don't want to do it from a, well, it's just the right thing to do standpoint, you should want to do this because it's good business.
Correct. Just think of what happened in terms of the increase of interest and populations that were attending baseball games when Jackie Robinson entered the major leagues.
Yep.
And very shortly thereafter, other African Americans. Now you have a whole new population of people that you are catering to and that you want now to come into the ballpark. Well, we can do the very same thing in the orchestra hall.
Alan's
Yeah,
going to want
I-
to talk about tennis. Go ahead, Alan.
You
It's
read
the only
my mind.
sports he knows about, so he's going to
Okay.
show off that.
I think I've heard of this Robinson fellow, but you just made me think about until Arthur Ashe, there just weren't
Althea Gibson.
black male tennis. Althea Gibson, and then in recent years Serena Williams, Venus
Yes.
Williams.
I think people came to the tennis courts to see Serena. People who might not have gone before. Coco, what's her name? Coco.
Coco
Gauff,
Gauff,
yeah.
the
Coco
number 3
Gauff.
tennis player in the world.
People are showing up to the tennis court who never showed up before because now perhaps they're seeing, oh, I'm being represented here.
And we're starting to feed our own this way. So a young Coco Gauff is watching TV and doesn't see any black women playing tennis. Maybe she doesn't pursue tennis either, but she sees Venus and Serena being put on this international stage and thinks, okay, I could do that. And there's maybe one more person trying tennis who otherwise wouldn't have. And I think the same is exactly the case for us as music teachers, too.
I'd like to add something to this. It's not just the players, it's the parents. Because,
Yeah.
when a parent sends a young person to play with us, they know that the chances of those individuals, those young people becoming professional musicians are like 1 in a million.
Yeah.
And so their parents are going to say, yeah, you're going to go be a part of that orchestra, but you're not going to make music a career. You're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an educator, something other than a musician who's all too often the income is sporadic. If parents, however, can see there might be opportunities for their children to actually make a career of this thing, of doing music, you might then have more parents who are encouraging their children to pursue a musical career, and also parents who are then willing to invest what it takes to get a child to be a good musician.
Well, let's get into the specifics for our music teachers and students. What do you want our listeners, the teachers, to know about diversity in classical music? What suggestions do you have for teachers who want to provide a better experience for their students?
Steve, I hate to disappoint you. I really don't look down on the teachers. I don't think it's their fault that things are in the way they are. I think it's more the policymakers.
Sure.
Now, what the teachers can do is inform the policymakers and make part of changing the policy. And I'm going to talk about which policies in just a second. They can be the ones to carry the message to their administrators, to their school board members, etc. But here's some of the policies. I don't know where you guys are right now, but in California, most of the school systems are pretty much based. The finances of the school systems are based on the property tax, I think it is.
Yep.
So if you have an inner city community, an inner city school, a bunch of inner city schools that are frankly suffering from a lack of resources because the tax base is frankly very meager, then maybe we need to change the process through which we fund education, music education. What I find in what I do is that, we have young people in other orchestras and other institutions. They begin getting lessons when they're 3, 4, 5 years old. So that by the time they're age eligible, so to speak, to join an orchestra like ours, and we take them as young as 10 years old, they've already been playing 5, 6, 7 years. They already know the scales. They already know the key signatures. They have an understanding of what a time signature is. All too often in the community where I work, these kids don't get an opportunity until they're fourth, fifth, sixth grade already to learn what a scale is, to learn what an instrument is, to touch an instrument for the first time. And I don't think that's an issue relative to the teachers themselves. Now, perhaps what some teachers can do is incorporate more music in the teaching of all lessons. I think the way we all probably learned our ABCs was by singing them. That shows to you the very basic foundational importance that music is to basic and foundational education. So maybe our teachers can be more using of music in ways to encourage basic education and understanding. I think there used to be a song about the presidents. There's a song about the states. We don't do that stuff anymore. That kind of stuff kind of worked with me. I bet it worked with you guys as well.
So I think what you're mentioning, a lot of that might be happening in some of our general music programs, but at the elementary level especially. But the problem is it isn't getting out into the community enough. Our lawmakers, our policymakers aren't realizing, oh, here are the cool things that music is doing or can do for our students. And then when we start talking about the secondary level and what your average lawmaker or policymaker or school board member might see, it's maybe the marching band at the halftime show of a football game, and that might be it.
That might be it.
I think you endeared yourself to the listeners right away by saying, hey, this isn't your fault. This is the policymaker's fault. That being said, I'm hearing from you that there might be some room for our music teachers to not necessarily drastically overhaul what they're doing, but maybe just do a little bit better job with the PR of trying to help more people know about all the great things that are happening in the schools where there are music.
I want to take it a step further. It's not just music teachers. I think general education, hey man, look, it used to be that to be a good priest, you had to sing some of the liturgy that happened in the Catholic Church. Now, I'm not Catholic, never have been, but I know that history. So every priest had to have some idea of musical training. Well, hell, every teacher should have some idea of good musical training and then be able to use music to teach other subjects. Doesn't necessarily have to be just the music class where we're learning music. We can use music to teach math, to teach civics, in fact, I contend that ensemble performances are the best teacher of civics that there are. Because when you are in an ensemble, sometimes you have the melody. And when you have the melody, that means essentially you're leading the music. And when you have the melody, you therefore have to know, you have to be prepared, you have to be able to lead. And then there are times when you don't have the melody, you have the harmony. And that means you need to be ready to support those who are in leadership. Just think of the transfer of those very concepts into a class on civics.
It might be difficult to say to the classroom teacher, you should sing more and teach some lessons with songs. But what might not be pie in the sky, something that might be accessible and doable, are the music teachers heading into the classroom and saying, what's your lesson today? Hey, let's orph this. Let's take this history lesson, or let's take this reading, or let's take this poem, let's make a little song out of it. Or maybe the first 10 minutes of a general music class, or even the first 5 minutes of a general music class could be, what did you just learn in the classroom you came from? How can we turn that into a song? Or the last 5 minutes, and then go back to class and annoy your teacher with this little song about the Louisiana Purchase, or whatever.
Exactly. I like those ideas, Alan.
Well, and I like that, Chuck, you're in Los Angeles. You direct the youth orchestra, Inner City Youth Orchestra of Los Angeles, which probably has some stuff built in that is going to generate some audience, some interest. But you are saying, hey, we got to sell this stuff. We got to sell our subject.
We do.
And I think one thing that I notice too many music teachers doing is saying, I shouldn't have to do this. Music is beautiful for its own sake. It shouldn't need to be tied to helping make math better, or we shouldn't need to relate it to history. It's beautiful in and of itself. And my answer to them has always been, you're right.
Yeah.
And would you rather be right with 5% of the students making music and 5% of the population consuming music in the way we want? Or would you rather, quote unquote, sell out a little bit and at least have a little bit broader appeal? And it sounds to me like you're saying, yeah, music is wonderful, but also we got to do a better job of selling why it's wonderful to other people.
I disagree with one thing that you said.
Yeah, let's hear it.
You used the term, you said selling out. This is not selling out.
Yeah,
This is getting people to buy in.
yeah.
So that's the only thing I would change about what you just said there, Steve. Yeah, buy into us because, and maybe what we need to do is do a better job in terms of convincing people that we are worthwhile, that we are worthy of being bought into,
Yeah.
that what we bring to the table helps everybody.
Yeah, I love how important the language was to you. And that is a great instance right there where even if we just slightly repackaged it as we're getting people to buy in, you're not selling out.
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
aren't the
yeah.
same thing. And I think that's a wonderful distinction that you made there. Do you have ideas for in communities where there aren't already strong public school music programs, what we need to be doing to engage the youth there musically?
Boy, that's a tough one, but I'll tell you this. We address this just by creating our organization. We are the Inner City Youth Orchestra of Los Angeles. We are a free opportunity for any young person who wants to walk in the door. We will teach them. We will provide instruments for them if need be, and it doesn't cost them a dime. One of my mantras, frankly, has been that there needs to be this kind of an organization every place where there's an NFL team. You see, we find that particularly in communities of color, communities that are primarily occupied by African Americans and Latinos primarily, there are even fewer opportunities for music education
Yep.
than there are in other communities. So where there's an NFL team, there's probably going to be a critical mass of African American people or Latino people. And I think those folks need to come together and they need to create an organization like ours because what we are able to provide to the young people of the community that we serve, I think is needed in Cincinnati, is needed in Pittsburgh, it's needed in Philadelphia, Miami. And so I strongly advocate for the creation of independent outside organizations that can supplement what might already be happening in the schools, or in many instances, provide where it isn't even happening in the schools because the economics, the finances of the school system does not allow for music instruction to take place.
Yeah, you got me thinking about the public school music teachers in Kansas City or Philadelphia or Cincinnati. And I wonder if a lot of them are thinking, I want to serve the students who are not getting music. However, because of the policies that are in place, it's basically impossible for me to do that. I either don't have time during the school day, or we don't have the money to buy enough violins that if everybody who can, and so forth. And I'm wondering if for those people who are frustrated with that situation, that exactly what you said, that might be the answer. Instead of trying to completely overhaul or fix the school that you're in, you'd keep fighting the good fight in the school, and then you come up with this other organization outside of the school where you can have a little bit more control. You don't have the school district bureaucracy when it comes to donations and grants and funding and that sort of thing. And that might be a way for some of our listeners who might be beating their head against the wall saying, I'm trying to do this, but all of these policies are in place and holding me back. Maybe the answer is, well, stop trying to do it at the school. Do something outside of the school. And that might allow them some musical and educational reward.
And Steve, let me tell you, it's incredible. You've really just enunciated how we got started. And this was not my idea. The way this organization got started is that there were 9 black high school kids who could play a little bit, who had no organization. Every time they went to join a youth orchestra, if they were living in the middle of the city, they'd find themselves having to take a 20-mile ride to a suburb where there's a youth orchestra where they could play. Then when they got there, they didn't know anybody there, so they didn't feel any sense of family, any sense of collaboration. And usually in these other youth orchestras, there's a lot of competition. You got to win a seat in the orchestra. Then once you win a seat, if it's not by the back door, you're going to try to get up to the front. Well, we cut all that out. You don't compete. You walk in the door, you want to be part of this, you're in. That's number one. Number two, You don't have to travel 50 miles or 20 miles or even 10 miles or 5 miles. Even running an after school program in the school. Come on here. We'll provide a violin for you. And maybe 3 years down the road, you'll be able to, when you're about to move from elementary school to middle school, you'll be ready to join the elementary school orchestra. Or, in fact, maybe you will be the founding member of such an orchestra if one doesn't exist.
So I got a logistical question for you. You said this started with 8 or 9 students.
Yes,
I can't imagine they were all at exactly the same playing ability level.
correct.
So, how do you pick music? What do you do? Did you divide them into, well, you three are still pretty remedial, so you're going to play in a group together? Or how did you do that with them all being at differing ability levels?
You create family. You quit making it be like, okay, you play better than you. Rather, you create partnerships. John plays better than Mary. John, you're now responsible to help Mary play better.
Yeah,
Man, you use what you got. You have to worry about, if somebody plays better or is more advanced than another, you make them a mentor.
Yeah.
I love it. That's a great solution to that, and something that, frankly, we could all be doing more of in our school music programs, too. That can happen anywhere.
Yes.
And again, what a beautiful reframing of the language. Instead of you play better than this person, or you can play advanced music, you play beginner music, it's creating the family and the partnership, the mentorship, empowering the students who have more experience to be teachers, and just normalizing all of it, that it's okay. We're all at differing ability levels and we all have different responsibilities.
And we are all part of this family.
I have a question about Inner City Youth, like the name of the organization, Inner City Youth Orchestra of Los Angeles. How do you define inner city youth?
Okay, so here's what happened, Alan. I think I said this before. The kids who came to me in 2009 and said, we need to start this, were all African American. They all pretty much lived in communities that were not very wealthy, probably on the lower end of the economic spectrum. They came to me, and when we started this, we bantered about what the name should be. And some of them said we should be the African American Youth Orchestra. I said no, because I don't want to, in any sense, give the idea that this is exclusive, that it's only for African Americans. And we're not. But regrettably, in our society, oftentimes we think of the phrase inner city as in some way referring to people of color, particularly African Americans. I did not find that to be as direct a statement of calling ourselves an African American youth orchestra. That's pretty much how we arrived at the term inner city. What do I think of it? So it's interesting. The community where we operate is where a lot of African American people live. But we had kids coming to us as far away as Bakersfield, 100 miles away, because they felt a sense of family when they walked in the door and said, "Oh, I don't have to compete against the guy who's already won a scholarship to Juilliard or Colburn. No, I can now play with other people who might not play at that level." And lo and behold, it's worked out. So what do I consider inner city? The truth of the matter is, Alan, our door is open to anyone, everyone who wants to walk in that door. We just find that because we are in a community that is heavily populated by African Americans and Latinos, those are the people that come.
All right, I love it, Chuck. So much good stuff to inspire us going forward, but we cannot let you out of here without the lightning round. So, are you ready to transition into some lighter topics?
I'll try.
All right, what's your favorite restaurant in the Los Angeles area these days?
Right now, I go to Truxton's a lot. It's a small chain. There's three of them. There's one that's close to our office. In spite of the fact that I love Truxton's, you can always entice me to go if we're going to 31 flavors.
Okay. How about a piece of music, a composer, or a performer that you wish more people knew about?
Oh, well, everybody knows about Tchaikovsky, but I love him so much. I love his music so much. Very recently, I've really become very acquainted with Mahler, with Gustav Mahler. I mean, of course, I knew he existed, but I'm a big Gershwin fan. People kind of know Rhapsody in Blue, but there's a whole lot of other stuff that he wrote. Another person who's really caught my attention lately is Jessie Montgomery, African American woman composer, who's doing some real good stuff in the classical world.
Is there a favorite film or TV series you've been enjoying recently?
I have really come to enjoy the classics. And my favorite movie is Casablanca. You know, you're talking about current stuff. I'm probably not the right guy to ask.
Yeah, and you know what? Anymore, Tchaikovsky, Casablanca, there are plenty of our listeners and their students who are not listening or checking out either of those.
Yeah, you put some Tchaikovsky in front of somebody or say, hey, here's this new film. It's real artsy. It's in black and white. It's called Casablanca. And they'll believe it's new.
Yeah,
And they'll
totally.
be blown away.
Yeah.
It's a great
Isn't
film.
that amazing?
The most memorable live music performance that you've attended.
When I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and the Los Angeles Philharmonic was still performing in what was called Philharmonic Hall, my father took me to see Marian Anderson sing. I'm 72 years old now. I still remember that like it was yesterday. I also saw Andre Watts play at the Hollywood Bowl, and after the concert was over, I got to go backstage and actually meet him. I really have to give credit to my parents for seeing to it that I had those opportunities and was able to take those in. Those are two rather remarkable experiences that I will never forget.
And finally, a book recommendation for our listeners, please.
Parting the Waters by Taylor Branch.
Okay, I don't know that one.
Okay, look it up. It's a story about America in the King years.
Chuck Dickerson, thanks so much for joining us today. The stories are inspiring. The ideas are helpful. And it's been a privilege to visit with you. Please keep doing what you're doing.
It's my joy to have the privilege of spending time with you guys today. Blessings on both of you, and thanks for you doing what you're doing to spread the word of good stuff.
Thanks for listening to Music Ed Insights.
We're supported by Group Dynamic, a leading provider of youth leadership workshops. Alan works with dozens of schools each year to help develop their leaders. Learn more at groupdynamicyouth.com.
Or you could email me at alan@groupdynamic.net. Also sponsored by the Co-College Music Education Program. They've got a website too.
Just click their link at our website or email me at shanley@coe.edu.
Also, The Normal Design, helping normal companies and people create memorable, meaningful, and professional designs and branding. More at thenormaldesign.com.
And Winterset Websites, website design and maintenance. wintersetwebsites.com.
Our Facebook page is Music Ed Insights.
Our website has program notes, links, and a one-page download of this episode's key takeaways. That's on musicedinsights.com.
You can expect a new episode most Mondays during the school year.
Get current.
Stay relevant.
Music Ed Insights.